All right, everyone. Thank you for your patience. As many of you know, I recently bought a house, and if you do own a home, you know the fun that comes with things like getting oil filled and getting accounts changed over. And so I was a little stuck with that, but I appreciate all of your patience as I was getting that taken care of. So, welcome. I should say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world today. This is Leading in the Moment with Geronda. And I really appreciate everyone being here. I know that there's been some consistent supporters. So, shout out to you being here each time that I have these broadcasts coming. So, um, before we get started, again, the topic is going to be, are you setting an example of self-care as a leader? And I know that sometimes there's many different definitions of self-care. What self-care means to somebody will be different than another person. Self-care is still something that is incredibly important. And what I want to also preface too is that um, with self-care, it's such a big topic. I can cover so much in this topic. So really what I'm going to actually do is going to make this into a two-part series. This part one is really going to go into um, self care, what it is, why it's important, and three ways or three considerations that you really need to start thinking through for your own self care. So that's going to be part one. Part two, there's going to be some practical application that I'm going to put into this as well, but part two is really going to go deeper into self care and getting that started. So if you are here right now with me live, I'd love for you to put live in the chat, and if you're watching the replay, super cool as well. Totally fine. So what I want to start with, I know that I usually ask a question before I just get started. I don't like to just jump in right away, but what is one thing that you value? And I was thinking about this for a while. And a friend of mine actually, we were talking about this question. And I'm actually going to take a step back because today is actually at sundown. It's going to be Passover, so I do want to say um, to the Jewish community, have a kosher and joyous Passover. I want to make sure that I got that in. So have a joyous and kosher Passover. But yeah, so going into what do you value? It's something that I hadn't thought of or really reflected on for a while, especially when I started out in my career. I actually didn't really think about it at all. You go to school, you get a job, you start trying to acclimate into the culture, meet different people. There's a lot that goes into that. So I wasn't thinking about my values, and I kind of wish I did a little bit earlier on, but over time I started to understand what that was. But two things that I really really value. One is humor. Trying not to take myself too seriously. I still can sometimes, but I just love when it's a space where people are just enjoying one another, laughing. I love comedy. I love just when you're having conversations with people, or you're watching somebody in a comedy show, or you're watching somebody in a movie, and it's just a good time. Like you're just laughing about things. And then I feel like when you start to kind of be able to laugh at yourself, that helps too. So humor's really big for me. I want to be able to just incorporate humor sometimes into different areas of my life, whether that's work, personal life, with family, with friends, what have you. And another thing that I will mention too is quality time. I really like to be able to hang out and watch something or play a game or just chat with loved ones, especially my partner. We see each other every single day, so the quality time is really important. Where I'm not gonna just be working all the time. I need time to reset. So I want to go really quickly into why I feel this topic is incredibly important and why it's also very important to start thinking about and reflecting on how much self-care you're giving yourself as a leader and how much this is going to then impact you and impact your employees. But I really want to focus on you right now, and the impact it could just have, not even just on your employees, but on your family, your friends, people that you really care about. So I want to tell you a quick story, and it's going to be an interesting story. Um, so I going into corporate. And being in human resources, I graduated college and I was so excited. I got a job before I graduated and I was incredibly pumped at the opportunity. And I felt really good because I was going to work for this really great organization and I was going to start off my career just on a really positive note. And I was so excited to go into it. I started really wanting to prove myself, and for various reasons. One, I was, a new graduate. I also wanted to make sure that I was showing that I'm a valuable asset to the team, to the company. So I started working super long hours, not really taking as many breaks as I probably should have. I started getting into the office super early, which also wasn't really that necessary at the time, but I wanted everyone to know that I'm a hard worker. And to me, that meant I had to show you that I can be in the office for this certain amount of time. I can work long hours and go home and work again. And I can wake up early and sign on and just be available no matter what. And with those long hours, I was also told, and the example that I was given was by doing that, that actually gets you to get ahead quicker. And so in my view, my understanding was when you think about corporate, you want to climb the ladder, you want to get to the highest role that you can possibly get to, and to do that, you have to make these incredible sacrifices. After some time, I started recognizing that I didn't have interest in that, and that's okay. But I really thought that that's the path that I wanted. So I really started working way too hard and not taking care of myself, not taking care of my health, not taking care of me at all. I didn't even think self care was a thing. So over time, I started getting these really bad, sharp pains in my head. I thought that maybe it was just stress. And I was like, it's probably just a little headache. It's going to go away. They started getting worse. Um, And this was as I was getting a little bit further into my career, I was starting to work even harder, which who knew that you can start doing that? Um, but when I was starting to work even harder, the sharp pain started getting even worse. And I went to the emergency room because I was like, this is not okay. This doesn't seem normal. I'm gonna go to the emergency room, get it checked out. Maybe they'll just give me some medication, and I'm gonna go home. They decided, let's do a CAT scan, let's do an MRI, did all these testing, and I woke up the next day on my birthday and I could not feel the right side of my face. It felt super tight. I legitimately thought I was having a stroke. So I went back to the emergency room and I'll show you really quickly. This is what my face looked like. And let me just get this to my screen here. My face looked really, really tight. And I hope you can see this now. This is what my face looked like at the time. I couldn't close my mouth all the way. I couldn't close my eye all the way. I actually had to wear an eye patch at night um, to go to sleep because my eye wasn't closing. I could barely breathe out of one nostril, and my face was like this. My speech was impaired, and I was drooling a lot because I couldn't move that side of my face, and it was scary because I never had experienced that before. So I didn't know anything of it, and what I thought was, "Oh my god, I'm like I'm probably having a stroke." So I share this story because essentially what the diagnosis was is I have Bell's palsy, and I still have it. You can kind of see it in my face a bit, probably when I smile. You can see sometimes like if I'm eating, my eye still closes. I can open them, which is great. But the doctor was asking me a set of questions, and this is something that's rare. Bell's palsy. There's still a lot of research that's going on about it. But he was asking me like, "Are you super stressed?" And I was like, "I don't think I'm that stressed." He was asking me if I had shingles. I didn't have shingles. Did I have diabetes? I didn't have diabetes. So it must have been stress that I unconsciously wasn't aware of. And all that stress built up, and that is what the doctor ultimately determined gave me Bell's palsy. So I'm not sharing this to say that everyone's going to get Bell's palsy. They're going to wake up and feel like they're having a stroke and get their face tightened and not knowing what to do. But there are health implications that do come with trying to push yourself so much and not doing the self-care that you know you should be doing and you can be doing. And I shouldn't say that you should be doing, because I know that sometimes you're just not aware. You just don't know that you're stressed. I had no idea how stressed I was. I was just going and going and going and going and going. And then ultimately I had to stop. And this happened in 2021. Uh, I still have it. I'm 90% recovered, but I'm probably going to have this for the rest of my life. I don't know. Um, so I share that story because self care is so important. And I want to give the definition of self care. But before I do that, I do want to put in a quick plug, which I normally do at this time. For if you do want to join, and I encourage you to join my email list. These are types of things that I will be putting in that list. And I had it open and it closed out on me, which is why I'm typing it all again. Um, but by having access to this is where I'm gonna do, the part two, and I might introduce some little pieces of ways that you can start to focus on self-care through this email list. So I'm going to just quickly share that with you, and we're gonna get you on it. So 1 second here. All right. So by joining this again, really it's being able to have access to this type of information. All right. Well, I don't want to take up too much time. I had the link available. I'm gonna find it again, and I'll put it in at some point. But um, essentially, when you're thinking about self care, one thing that I mentioned earlier was sometimes we don't know what the definition of self care is, or maybe there's different definitions that we have. And so with self care, it's really looking at your own health, using the knowledge and information available to you so that you can take care of yourself, so you can be healthy and you can be well, so you can do your job, spend time with loved ones, do things that you enjoy, accomplish what you want in the day. And when I was looking, I looked at so many different definitions of self-care, and what I actually found as a key word in that was using the knowledge and information available to you. Sometimes we just don't know where to begin. We don't know where to start. We are consumed with things at work. We're consumed with everything that's going on, and we don't take a second to look at what we have at our disposal. Some companies have benefits already where they might use Calm for meditation, or you might have therapy that's access for you. You may have access to health benefits. You have your um annual medical exam, which I know many of us don't like going to the doctor, but sometimes there's so much knowledge, or for some of us it feels like we don't have enough knowledge because we don't know where to go. So take that first step to just look at, how can I take care of myself, and maybe focus on one area. There's many ways you can go about your self-care. There's mental health, there's your physical health, and there's your emotional health. And now if you want to go on your physical health, maybe thinking about meeting with a dietitian, or looking at how you're consuming your food right now and types of food that you're consuming. Start somewhere. But what I like to talk about too is there's also things that are going to impact how you're going to approach this. If you don't know, one, if you don't have awareness, that's going to be really challenging, because if you're not aware of how your health is impacted, there's no way you're going to know how to start. Um, how how and what you value can also impact that awareness. You may lose what you valued. You might go against everything that you valued to get that job, to get in that position, to work with your family, to please other people. Um, that in itself is a big awareness of what do you actually value. And I'll share an example. I really genuinely, you always see me on these lives in a sweatshirt. They're just comfortable for me. I feel really myself in them, or a t-shirt when it gets hot. I don't wear these year round, but um, I'm not really like a dress up person unless I actually feel like I have to be. But for me, I value just comfort, and I also value humor. So when I am, when I was working in certain jobs, I was like, I need to be with people who have really great sense of humor, or people who are going to accept me for just who I am. I might throw jokes in every once in a while and just want to. That's how I build relationships. So when I went into a setting where that was not the case, it was incredibly uncomfortable. I started feeling very anxious around people. I started feeling very nervous. I was not being myself. I was uh, also avoiding a lot of things. So I didn't get to build many relationships. It was just not an experience that was good for me. And it affected my mental health, which is not what I wanted. So think about what you value, and have you really reflected on that in a while? And if that is misaligned, that's also going to impact your mental health. So this could look like, have you blown up on an employee recently? Have you disconnected completely from work? Are you just disassociating yourself from work, or your family? Maybe you're having challenges at home that you really need to focus on, but you don't think you can move away from work. Somebody posted something the other day, and it was the best thing I've ever seen. It was, work will always be there, but you will not be. So your work is always going to be waiting for you. Take the time that you need to focus on the things that are going to help you be 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 more aware and healthy in terms of your mental, your emotional, and your physical health. So I want to start this part one in just focusing on you and what that means for you. So what that looks like is, you work really hard to find that balance of getting your work done and being a leader. You still sometimes have priorities, but then you might have to coach someone, or maybe you have to have a performance conversation. How can you best prioritize what you're working on, but also then look at ways that you can then better support yourself in self care? Maybe during your lunch break, you go for a walk instead of, maybe you're sitting down and you're trying to get work during lunch. Take 30 minutes, just go on a walk. Look at your schedule and ways you can do that. Again, reevaluate what you actually value. Reflect on that again. Write those down. Write down what you actually value and think about, have I actually been living in that way that is supporting these values? And if not, start thinking about, how can I now get back on track so that I can get these values back? And how have your values changed? Sometimes your values ebb and flow as you go through different parts of your life. As you get older, you might have different values. As you shift jobs, you might have different values. If your family grows, your values might change. That's okay. But also recognize, are these values benefiting me or are they harming me? So again, start really thinking about your values. Start really reflecting on what has been impacting your ability to have self-care, and really thinking about, if your values have changed, how have they changed? Maybe why have they changed? And are they benefiting me or not? So that's what I wanted to do for part one, is really focus on the reflection and thinking about how you are being for yourself. And yes, there are going to be impacts of your behavior on employees or your work or your family. That's also important to recognize, but you can't become aware of that unless you really focus on yourself. Now you can get feedback from other people. You can ask other people to say, like, hey, how have I been toward you? Some people might say, you've been very short with me lately, or you seem really stressed out. Also listen to those people. I don't think, oftentimes there's no ill intent or motivation. People who really care about you are just going to share those with you. I'm sorry for the loud noise in the background. I have a dog and she has a bone, so she's nomming on it. But that's really what I want you to take away from this today. So, with that, the next topic is going to be part two of this, with more practical tips for self care as a leader. And that's going to happen on Wednesday, April 19th. So, I hope that I can see you there for April 19th. Again, these are always at the same time. These are going to be at 12 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So, again, April 19th is going to be the next one that's going to be coming at 12 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And with that, before I go, I'm going to get you this this login, not login, get you access to my newsletter so that you can always get access to this. So I'm going to take this off here. Here it finally is. There you go. And so, yes, please join that. I will see you next time. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And with that, I will say peace.